bring in now, we're bringing in some experts, some guests on this. We have Charles Marino. He's a former Secret Service special agent and former senior advisor to the Department of Homeland Security. Charles, good morning. Do I have you with me?
Good morning.
Just a terrible, tragic day out of New Orleans. What have you made so far about the news that we've heard? 10 dead, 26 injured this morning.
Yeah, absolutely horrific event. No doubt that this was intentional on the part of the suspect to not only use the vehicle as a weapon, which, by the way, is right out of the al-Qaeda ISIS playbook, to use a vehicle as a weapon, but to also be armed and equipped with body armor, as reported, indicates that there was further carnage that could have been expected if this suspect had not been stopped by law enforcement. You know, this again highlights the vulnerabilities of large events. They either have to be made pedestrian areas in totality with hardened barriers, or they're not. And what we see, unfortunately, here is a lack of those hardened barriers, pedestrians being allowed to congregate in large groups and present themselves as a target. We just saw this, Markie, last week in Germany. Same thing. You've got a large event, a lot of people in a compact area. Bourbon Street, as we know, is very restricted in its spacing, and there should be absolutely no interaction in that area between pedestrians and vehicular traffic. There should be no way for somebody like this to get a car around there to use it as an attack.
Yeah, and talk to me about that, Charles, because in part of that press conference, we heard the police chief say that they did have barriers, but this man got around them. They had 300 officers patrolling the French Quarter last night, you know, just in preparation of something like this in a worst-case scenario. If that doesn't do the trick, I mean, what else is there to do? And are you thinking that those barriers weren't, in fact, hardened barriers?
Yeah, they weren't hardened barriers, and obviously they didn't do the job in totality of restricting vehicular traffic when somebody can go around them. What we're seeing from law enforcement as part of these large events, unfortunately, is what I would call temporary vehicular restrictions with temporary barriers. And these, unfortunately, for somebody that is set on attacking a large crowd, they're very hard to stop. So what do you have to do? You have to restrict their access to the target of choice. And this is to do as much damage in as little time as possible in a very crowded area. We see this MO from large event to large event, whether we're talking about a vehicle being used as the weapon initially, or we talk about shootings, such as along parade routes. You know, these are things that need to be paid attention to, especially as we're talking about large events like New Year's Eve. So we've got to find out a lot more now about this suspect. We find ourselves back in the similar game. Let's look at social media. Let's see if this person was radicalized. But we've got to be more focused on prevention.
And talk to me more about what, I mean, I know this is early on, and we don't even know this suspect's name yet, but what's typically the profile or motive behind someone who does this to innocent people?
Well, obviously deranged. We know that this was a plan of attack here that was thought out quite thoroughly when you look at the secondary and third steps here of being armed with an assault rifle as well as body armor, and then you start with the initial attack using the vehicle as a weapon. So this was well thought out. The suspect obviously expected to be engaged and was prepared for that from law enforcement. But, you know, it's hard right now, Markie, to put a finger on it, because we also have this copycat mentality that's now out there, based, unfortunately, on the success of previous attacks like this around the world. So now not only are you looking at potential radicalization, if there's an affiliation with, as I pointed out earlier, al-Qaeda, ISIS. As I said, al-Qaeda has been talking about using a vehicle as a weapon in their Inspire magazine for decades. And so this has to be expected that somebody is going to act on this. This is the goal of these terrorist organizations. They throw everything against the wall, see what sticks, see who it sticks with, and who's going to act out on this. So we don't know if there's a direct affiliation in one of these terrorist groups, or if it's just somebody taking one of these modes of attack and using it for their own purposes. But this also demonstrates that we are facing more threats from more places than any time in our history as a country, and we've got to be prepared for this.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.